Buffalo Bills legend Jim Kelly has come out and said some pretty interesting things about the Bills and how they handled the protest during Sunday's national anthem against the Denver Broncos. And for the Buffalo News, I'm Tim Graham here with Kimberley A. Martin and Jay Skurski at One Bills Drive, in which we have just spoken with Sean McDermott, his thoughts about Jim Kelly. He's a legend, in many ways the face of the team, but also coming out against LeSean McCoy. And I think that this could be a tricky situation for the Bills to have to navigate here. Jay, you were talking to Sean McDermott about that, asking him whether or not Jim Kelly would be welcome. What was your take on what Sean McDermott had to say about it?
Well, I didn't come away feeling like Sean McDermott was very pleased with what Jim Kelly had to say, and the fact that it's created a situation now in the locker room where the current players are going to defend their teammate, while at the same time, in many ways, still the face of the franchise, a guy who, by the way, is still paid by this team, is going on radio shows saying that he's lost a lot of respect for perhaps their best player. So I think it is a very thorny issue right now for this team, because are they going to ban Jim Kelly from the sidelines? I asked Sean McDermott that very question, and he was not definitive in his response that he wouldn't. In fact, he really didn't even answer the question either way. He said he couldn't see that happening. Well, maybe something changes and it could happen, because he didn't definitively say that he wouldn't consider it, and they're gonna have to do something, because if the issue and the three words that they've used the most are love, equality, and unity, and there is this very public disagreement between a Hall of Fame quarterback who represents the team and perhaps the team's best player, who was outspoken, I thought eloquent about his reasoning yesterday for why he did what he did. I know some may object to his actions during the anthem, particularly the fact that he wasn't taking a knee, he was stretching and warming up and things like that. But for Kelly to be as critical as he was of McCoy is something that this team, I'm sure, is dealing with today. They're going to deal with it tomorrow, and they're going to deal with it the rest of the week when McCoy is asked about it on Wednesday.
And it does wade into some dangerous territory. And after the national anthem, prior to the Denver Broncos beating the Denver Broncos, Jim Kelly had some pretty heated things to say, apparently, to Buffalo Bills owner Terry Pegula, and maybe to some of the players coming off. We're going to get into more of that. But you know, the thing about this, Kim, is that Kimberly, I'm going to say that right on air, just to correct myself. She doesn't like it. She doesn't like it for you out there, too. Kimberly, is that the team has been unified, or at least together in this. And you have to know that there are players in that locker room who disagree with kneeling to the national anthem, but they've kept that opinion to themselves. When Jim Kelly, somebody like Jim Kelly, steps out, what do you think that does within the locker room?
Well, what it does within the locker room, I don't know if it necessarily does anything to the relationships in the locker room itself, but not just him disagreeing with the protest, but also the sentiments of, if you don't like it here, then leave. You know, that's part of the issue that a lot of these players are. Before yesterday, a lot of players were kneeling too, as far as these are our concerns. We want to see changes as far as oppression and social justice and criminal justice reform and all these things. So I think now with the president too, also his comments about the NFL and these players, it has brought politics into the locker rooms, and we're not escaping it right now, because the protests yesterday, a lot of guys were protesting the president on top of protests about things going on in society. So Sean McDermott is somebody who does not want to be talking about issues outside of the locker room, outside of the football field, just because he's so focused on winning, which I understand. But now those issues have come to your doorstep, and as the head coach of the football team, you have to be the conduit and make sure that the players feel that their voices are heard, while also being respectful of one of the greatest, you know, the face of the franchise, like you said.
One of the things I think that the Bills did that was brilliant, it was well done, at least on Saturday, the way that they handled the way they planned it, the way they came out with a statement. And I think that what Jim Kelly has said well, on Instagram Sunday night and then on the radio Monday morning torpedoed it in many ways. And so now Sean McDermott, who's trying to win football games, he has 13 more of them to get ready for, and that's
unity and brotherhood and love and all that stuff.
That's
on top of it.
And they've gone completely against that. There was at least a dozen players who made this gesture, made this silent form of protest yesterday, and 12 hours after the game ends, Jim Kelly has come out and said he doesn't want to see it anymore.
Right.
And that's not what the message was on Saturday night or Sunday morning, or what Lorenzo Alexander said after the game, who had a big part in organizing that meeting. That was not their message. It was, we are going to be unified in this, and they're not.
That's a distraction that has now fallen in Sean McDermott's lap. That the legend, the #1 Buffalo Bill of all time, has now come out and showed his displeasure with the guys who are in this locker room that Sean McDermott has to get ready on a day-to-day basis. A guy whose name is all over the stadium behind us, who's in the Hall of Fame, and I think it's a distraction that the Bills could have done without and are not too thrilled with. For the Buffalo News and BuffaloNews.com, I'm Tim Graham with Kimberley A. Martin and Jay Skurski.